Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Welcome to everybody that's joining right now. We've got the lovely Brittany Diamond with us. She's a strong woman, bodybuilder, coach, writer, awesome all-around individual. And I just brought you on here today because I want to learn a little bit more about your story, about kind of what got you into it, what got you inspired, what keeps you going, what your goals are, and maybe you can give us some tips to be as awesome as you.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has any questions while we're talking, just I'll make sure I keep looking at the comments. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get right into it then. Um, so let's start with your journey. I kind of wanted to start off with what initially drew you to strength sports and what got you inspired and motivated to just get in the gym in the first place.
I started really young as a runner. And I think I was like 7 years old when I started just going outside and running. Honestly, now that I'm older, I can talk about it. It was just an escape from a chaotic family life. So I started to research like how could I become a better runner? And I was obsessed. My first idol was Florence Griffith Joyner, aka FloJo, won a bunch of gold for the US. And she was an Olympic sprinter that also sometimes she got in trouble, sometimes she got banned because of how she dressed. She definitely expressed herself. So I got into that and I started doing, I wouldn't call it strength training, but when I was about 10, it was more like developing my core and just trying to become a better runner. It wasn't until I was in middle school, I would go after school, I would go to the high school to train with the high school girls. And that's when I really started getting into lifting. I was so skinny that I remember my first kind of like aesthetic reasoning was I just wanted a bigger upper body because my legs were getting big from sprinting, but I had these little stick arms. So I pretty much only did bicep curls for the first couple of years. But then once I was in college, I was a collegiate rower. So that's when I became obsessed with learning about strength and conditioning.
Okay. When did it kind of go from an accessory to just getting better at the sport that you were engaged in to like full on, you've got your split down and you're dieting for this and that kind of stuff?
It wasn't until after I graduated college, because in college, we had, we were told what split to do. I was an endurance athlete as a rower and lifting. So my diet was kind of just all over the place being a student because I was always hungry. Sometimes after practice, we would have like a 12-mile cool down. So I was just kind of a furnace, always eating. But as soon as I graduated, I remember I asked my mom for my college graduation present to buy me a 6-pack meal prep bag.
Nice.
And I actually, so that was in 2000, the August or September of 2014. I still have the exact same one. It's been to like 6 countries. I can't let it go. It just means so much to me. So that's when I really
Wow.
started, yeah, food prepping. And I called it like the road to Strongwoman. I remember I graduated college at 150 pounds. And then within like 4 months, I was up to like 165. So it was like those newbie gains because I was stopping the endurance sport and making sure I was eating enough, training. I just kind of became obsessed with it. So, and it was nice for the first time in my life to be on my own, not doing it. Like I didn't have a coach telling me what to do. I was just doing it on my own. So that was really fun.
Okay. Okay, cool. Um, so like immediately after being a rower and the collegiate sports stuff, like the goal automatically was strong woman.
Yes. So my junior year of college, so rowing was one of those sports, like we did not have a break. We didn't have Christmas break because we trained right through, but we did have summer break. And my junior year of summer, I worked at a gym as a trainer. And I remember I came across something called Boston Strongest. I was helping the gym market one of their events. So I was just on Facebook and I said, "What is this, Boston Strongest?" And I remember I was reading the description. It said, "Do you think you're strong?" And I saw that they had a women's novice division and I clicked on it and I was like, "Oh, wow, this is this is close to me and this is coming up in 2 weeks. So I just clicked on it and I signed right up. I called the owner to make sure I didn't miss the cutoff or anything because it said like you had to sign up by X date. And I was like, oh no, I'm a day late, but I didn't really understand the rules because it was on Facebook. So like it said one thing on the entry form and then something else on Facebook. So I called, he's like, yes, you're signed up. And then before I knew it, I had girls messaging me saying like, do you want some DVDs? Do you know what you're getting into? Because they were trying to grow the sport. It was
Hmm.
called the subgroup that reached out to me was called News. It stood for New England Women of Strength because again, at the time I was in Massachusetts. This was Boston's strongest.
Hmm.
And I said, I lift at college, like I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna kind of go and wing it. And they were nervous just because again, they were trying to grow the sport. But I showed up that day, didn't know what I was doing. I ended up taking first place in novice out of 7. I remember I was wearing like a pink silky material, and that is not what you want to be wearing for Strongwoman. Like I remember my first pictures, I was holding like I think it was a 150-pound stone, which is funny because that's light now, but it was like the heaviest, most awkward thing I'd ever touched. And I remember it kept rolling down my shirt, and everyone kept saying like, take your shirt off and just do it in the sports bra. Like skin to skin contact is going to stick better than your silk. So that was my first experience.
That's funny. Um, yeah, I was curious because like obviously strongwoman I think is a little bit even more niche than something like bodybuilding or powerlifting is. It's a pretty small subsection of strength sports, right? So it's like, was it just that you hadn't been introduced yet to bodybuilding, or was it like something about strongwoman in particular drew you to that instead of bodybuilding?
Yeah. So again, when I was younger, I always thought I would be more of a bodybuilder because, that's what was in the magazines. That's what I was reading about with training, nutrition. And then when I found Strong Woman, again, I kind of just stumbled upon into it. I thought, like, I have a really good knack for this. Like, I'm naturally strong. I can move fast still. I'm very athletic. I just thought it kind of fit me better. So I kind of put the idea of bodybuilding in the back of my mind because the training was so different. And like you said, it definitely is a niche sport. It's people think it's powerlifting. It's not. The only thing we have in common is yes, sometimes we deadlift, but we always have
Mhm.
different deadlift variations. I always describe it as like powerlifting. You have 3 things. You get to pick the weight. It's a very good sport for people that like to be methodical and know what they're going to do that day. Strongman is more if you are okay just going out on a whim and kind of being able to just be strong and wing it. Because a lot of times the event will change that day. It's various feats of strength. So you really don't know. And it's hard to practice the exact implements because, if you're at a regular gym, they don't always have boulders or cars for you to lift or odd objects. So the appeal to me was I felt like I really had to show up on contest day and be able to perform because I noticed quickly that other women or men that would kind of falter or get nervous wouldn't do as well. Where I was like, I was confident, I knew I was strong, and I was smart enough to kind of figure out how to navigate strongman because there's a lot of like almost like engineering in it. Like, how is the best way to get from point A to point B as quickly as
Mm.
possible? So I enjoyed the challenge of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before, but definitely makes sense. Um, what did the training look like in those beginning days? Obviously, like you said, they don't always have the implements that you're looking for. I'm sure you weren't at like a professional strong person gym, were you?
So I actually purposely moved to, so my junior year, like I said, I did that novice competition. I just instantly knew that that's what I wanted to pursue upon graduating. So I purposely moved to that area of Boston. I had a regular job at the time, but I got a job in that area because I wanted to make sure that I could train with the best people and have access to the best equipment. So training was so much fun. Training was a full-time job. So I worked a full-time job, but then after work, so about 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., I trained 4 days a week. And then on Saturdays, we had Strongman Saturdays, and I trained for 6 to 7 hours. I know that sounds kind of absurd, But when you're setting up implements for strongman, it takes a long time.
I
So
bet.
yeah, yep. So I was in Boston training at a gym called Total Performance Sports, and we've actually had like 8 professionals come out of there. So it was definitely the best place to be.
Okay. Okay, cool. Um, Explain that just a little bit for me. Like you say you were training 4 days a week after work, right? And then on Saturdays it was strongman training. Is that like, so you're using implements only on Saturday and you're just doing like gym work to get stronger during the week?
Yes, so during the week, I would do main compound movements, always an overhead press day, a deadlift day, a squat day, and then more of like an accessory day. I would still work the implements into the main lift. So, for example, on pressing day, I would always either use a log, an axle, or a circus dumbbell, but then a lot of accessory work. And then specifically on Saturdays, we would do events set up because like something like a car deadlift or a yoke or just odd medleys that you see in strongman, like it takes an army to set up when you're, talking about getting a car on a rig.
Hmm.
You can't really do it by yourself. So
Right.
Saturdays were event specific days. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, what are some challenges that you faced when you were in your journey to where you ended up in Strongwoman?
Injuries are obviously extremely common in the sport. And now that I'm in my 30s, I am 100% feeling some of those injuries. It's very, very taxing on the spine. As you can imagine, nearly every movement in strongman is lower back intensive, deadlift, stones, 600-pound yoke carries, all that. So I would, and everyone that is a professional strongman, we all have a joke about like our backs. We all have, usually it's L3, L4, your disc. So we all have like some disc injuries. So learning how to train when you have those injuries and take the time off was definitely a challenge. And then my friends joked around, they're like, oh, welcome to the pro card. So when you're a professional strongman, because of all the pressing, you develop these like cysts in your wrist because your wrists aren't necessarily meant to hold like twice your body weight in the hand. So you can even see today I have like some weird bones that kind of stick out of
Oh,
my,
wow.
yeah. So wrist wraps, and I joke, it's like when you're training for strongman, you you have to, it looks like you're going like rollerblading or something because you'll have your straps on, all your wraps, all different kinds of belts. It's very common to wear 2 belts, a soft neoprene wrap, and then put a hard belt over it. So definitely learning how to work around the injuries was tough. Every strongman has their first back injury story where we can't walk. Usually you go to the hospital, you have to get like painkillers or cortisone or something. Um, it's just, yeah, that's just part of it. So I always tell people like it's just it's just part of it. I actually always warn people now, like twice a year my back will just randomly go out. I can't walk for a few days. It's just what
Oh, no.
happens. Yeah, it's just what happens. I feel like a lot of heavy deadlifters experience the same thing. It's more of, I always tell people, like, if your discs are herniated, that's okay. Like, you can still train. Sometimes people don't even know if their discs are herniated. It's only when it hits a nerve
Mm.
and, your spinal is telling your brain, like, oh, this hurts. So that's really only when it causes an issue. And that usually happens when you're overtrained, your CNS is fried, you're super tight. A lot of times, like if your hip flexors are super tight, that will knock out your lower back and your hips. It's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, okay, am I too tight in my hip flexors? Is that why this happened? So, yeah. So it just kind of
Yeah.
depends.
Okay, so injuries. Do you think if you had known like what you were up against in that regard before starting strongman training, would you have still done it? Would you have still competed, all that?
That's such a good question. I think about that often because when I wake up and I'm in pain now in my 30s and like I have to get ready just to go for a walk, I'm like, oh, I kind of regret this, but
Mm.
I don't. It was my job and it got me, I've lived all over, different parts of the country. I lived overseas for a little while. and it gave me like a platform and it allowed me to work for myself. So I'm hoping that stem cells and the advancement of medical treatment in my lifetime gets a lot better because I'm going to be 33 and I'm like, I
Hmm.
know I have a lot of, I'm actually getting surgery in 2.5 weeks on my meniscus. That's definitely from Strongman. So,
Oh, wow.
but no, I probably wouldn't have changed anything because
Yeah.
I did train pretty smart. Like I always spent an adequate amount of time warming up. If anything, I sometimes wonder if more of my injuries were from rowing because we would be outside running and rowing in like 15-degree weather. So a lot of times like the stiffness of the joints and then rowing being so one side dominant, I wonder if I got some imbalances from that. But
Hmm.
nearly every strongman, I know I'm doing pretty good considering some of my friends that I competed with like don't do anything now. They just tried to lose all their muscle and like go on hikes. So
Yeah. I'm sure you could be like a huge resource for guys and girls trying to get into it now, like knowing what you know and with all your experience and actually training is in strongman. Was there a way that in retrospect you could have done it better to mitigate some of those injuries or some of that, or is that literally just like you have to go into it knowing you're going to have crazy injuries?
I do think you have to have the mindset going into it, just like football or wrestling or certain sports. Like it's hard on the body.
Hmm.
And if you take it, if you are just doing it for fun and want to do like a local competition as an amateur, cool, you can work around those. Once you get to the professional level and it's your job, you're going to get injured.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. I don't know any single strongman competitor that hasn't been.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. I'm not cut out for it. You are pretty badass. Um, what advice would you give to a woman that is kind of in the shoes that you were in when you first got started? She's looking up to you. She wants to achieve some of the things that you've achieved. What would you tell her?
I would tell her to, or him too, if anyone, surround yourself with the best. Like, go to a gym where you are not the strongest, not the biggest. Like, look for other people. You want to be an underdog because you always want to be learning, soaking up knowledge, and getting better. And if you have that mentality, some people, especially when you're young and you have an ego, you want to be the biggest, you want to be the strongest. That feels good, right? No, you don't. You want to go to a gym that has a record board that you're striving to beat. So, and there's definitely different parts of the country that are better for that. Like I said, I purposely moved to Boston to fulfill this career. And now, we'll get into that later, but I live in Las Vegas now because that's the mecca of bodybuilding. And when I was done and retired from Strongman, I knew I wanted to push bodybuilding more. So I moved to the area where I could be around the best in the world and be an
Hmm.
underdog.
Hmm. Makes sense. What did that transition look like from strongman to bodybuilding?
It was pretty smooth. In 2019, I had a really bad wrist injury. I had 3 surgeries on it. They said I would never use my arm again,
Oh.
but obviously, I used my arm again. It was a crush injury from a truck pull incident. So during the recovery for that, like I just knew that me not competing wasn't an option. So once I got my cast off, I spent time building back up the symmetry between my 2 arms because obviously, like, I lost a lot of muscle. However, it came back fast. I was only 27. So building back up the muscle once it atrophies was a much faster process than I realized. I think in like 2 months, I was like, oh, I look even again. Because at first the cast came off and I was like, wow, I have the smallest arm on the left side. So I did more bodybuilding style training for that. And that's when I kind of dabbled with wanting to compete. I did actually compete in Strongman one more time.
Hmm.
And my wrist was just kind of a problem. Like when I
Mm.
was lifting stones, it just like was always hurting. And I kind of was just done with it at that point. Like I always say, like I walked away from the sport when people were still clapping for me.
Okay.
I wanted to go out on a good note, on a high note, know that
Mhm.
I fulfilled everything I wanted to fulfill. My main goal was to, compete at strongest woman in the world. And I was able to do that a couple times in place and travel internationally. So those are my main goals. And bodybuilding, yeah, it was just fun. It was obviously more centered around the diet. Like I wasn't at the gym nearly as long because I didn't have to train implements.
Hmm.
So it was natural, and it was also like what I wanted to do when I was younger. So it was fun to apply like everything I had learned or read about when I was younger, and started to train more hypertrophy and not need to kill myself every time I was at the gym trying to lift so heavy.
Right,
But
right.
I think it was a really, a lot of people in bodybuilding like ask me like, how'd you build such dense muscle? And I'm like, well, I did strongman and I was a rower. So I definitely have some imbalances. I would say my disadvantage now is because I was a strength athlete and a rower, I have some symmetrical issues with certain parts of my body, like definitely my lat on one side. I was a starboard rower, so that means I was pulling more with my right side and like leaning on the oar. So I definitely have a little bit of imbalances there. But I think the grit it taught me helps a lot.
Okay. Um, what does it look like now? Like, what are your goals in bodybuilding now? What does your training kind of look like now? How do you fit that in?
So right now, so I competed 2 times last year. I won the overall at Legions, and that was the show where I was like, okay, do I still want to compete? Let me just get my feet wet again. I had taken like 2.5 years off, just trying to figure out my life over here. I was still training, of course, and like dieting, but not to the extreme level that it takes when you're a competitor. So I just wanted to get my toes wet again. I did like an 18-week prep. And then when I won the overall, I was like, okay, cool. I feel like I just started warming up. So then we went to nationals, and that's when I decided. So I was women's physique. Now, when I started training with that intensity and that like purpose, when you just have more of a purpose to train, like you're going to push harder naturally, I started to actually gain some size, which you reach a certain level of your body in your career. And I didn't honestly know I could grow anymore, but I just started like developing more. So I switched over from physique and I did bodybuilding too. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
fun.
Cool.
Yes, that was fun. I got fourth in both categories. So I decided after to stick with it, and I'm going to try to get a pro card. So right now is my first like off season that I'm dedicated to, where I'm taking it seriously. It's been very uncomfortable. Off season is much harder than prep because I'm so big. Like I don't like
Hmm.
being this big. I feel very out of shape. I'm pushing the food. Cardio is at an all-time low, and training is intense, but yeah, I just feel really really big and uncomfortable. However, I know I'm gaining muscle, and I know when I cut back down, it will be worth it because I'm starting from such a healthy place. And it's just, I have so many factors to play with
Hmm.
once I do start leaning out again, which will hopefully, so surgery's in 2 weeks. That should be a quick recovery. It's just a knee scope. So I should be back to normal training in like 4 weeks or so. And then the plan for this year where I live in Vegas is to do the Olympia, the amateur, because last year a girl that I beat at Legions got her pro card there. So it's like an easier show. Not that I want easy, I wanted hard to get my pro card, but at this point, I just want to build a pro physique, get the pro card, and then compete as a pro.
Right, right. And that's in bodybuilding?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So eventually, I mean, the goal for bodybuilding then is to hit the Olympia stage as a pro in bodybuilding, right?
Yes, why I live in Vegas, that's my main goal right now is to compete at the Olympia once as a pro for
Awesome.
sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, well, that leads in perfectly to what is your take on balancing strength and femininity?
I love that question. So it's pretty, people ask me that question all the time. And I've always been, like I said, my idol growing up was FloJo. She dressed how she wanted to. I've always worn makeup. I've always liked my hair done a certain way. And that's how I express myself. And people sometimes confuse like bodybuilding and muscle with manly. I absolutely hate that. I don't think that's true at all. And then, you just have to be careful not to abuse performance enhancing drugs. I'm always err on the side of caution with that.
Hmm. What do you think some women are doing wrong, if that, right? Like, where do you think women are going wrong? Is it just abusing drugs or?
That's such a good question. And I was having this conversation the other day. I think people listen to their male coaches too much and don't do enough of their own research. You know, if you're competing in the sport, you have to take responsibility for what you do, know what you're doing to your body. Know that as a woman, when we go through extreme diet phases, it's hard on our hormones. So I'm always like, you have to get blood work. Like, for example, I had a friend the other day that said, she was taking progesterone and she's a couple weeks out from her pro debut. And she was like, I just took it out. And I go, did you tell your coach? She said, no. And I said, why not? Like, that's something your coach needs to know. If you're taking out a compound or adding anything in, you know, it's not the healthiest sport. But there's ways to make it more healthy, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes sense. Um, all right, switching gears a little bit because I did want to talk a little bit about this. Like you've done, in my opinion, a really good job of monetizing your strength, right? And making this a career for yourself. And I'm curious, like, what does that kind of look like for you? You know, the different buckets, like you coach and you do content and all this kind of stuff, right? Um, what does that look like for you? And what advice would you give to somebody that's also, you know, they're really into this, they train super hard, they're competing, but they have a 9 to 5 and they're sick of it and they want to actually do this full time?
So I started with a 9 to 5 for, I did, I did this on the side for 6 years before I left the corporate world. And I think people nowadays are too soon to leave their steady job and just say, I want to do fitness full time. I went into it not wanting to make money. I went into it, I was using social media just as a way to document my journey. And I kind of just built up my following just from being authentic. Like I would say, when I scroll back, it's funny to look at old posts because I was just writing, like it was a journal. I'd be like, today was a great training day. And I was so happy and I was just expressing myself. And over time, I felt this like responsibility to kind of show people you could do anything because, again, like I had no idea I was capable of competing at the highest level. Like it just didn't know that was in my cards. It was kind of just a wild dream that I made come true. So I did start coaching. And again, I was working my full time job, and coaching was my main source of income, like from the internet. Like I would
Hmm.
get clients that way. And then I started getting a couple sponsorships. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. All I have to do is make content. And then it got to the point in 2020 when I felt like I could not do both anymore. I had so many clients, I had no free time. So I jumped ship. I was like, all right, I'm going to quit. It was during COVID too. So I felt like I was going to get laid off anyways. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do this. And that's when more opportunities opened up. Like I started getting sponsorships for more money. I started dabbling, like I would say I was a coach and an athlete. And then I started dabbling with like influencing.
Hmm.
I put that quotation mark because I didn't even know I was doing it at the time, but I would get like different brand deals and utilize social media like for ads and things like that. But my number one advice is for people that want to get into it is to be authentic, look at other people that you admire and see what they're doing, but still have your own voice. Like even to this day, I sometimes will have on Instagram like business coaches reach out to me and tell me what I'm doing is wrong because my posts are all over the place. Like you'll see one post of me hiking and I'll still make it work related. Like I'll be like, I'm drinking, I made the other day, for example, on Sunday I went hiking and I made it a Granite post because I brought banana bread with me and I made it protein banana bread. So I showed myself like baking before and then eating it on my hike. And then like the next post will be like me squatting and then it will be like a tip and then it will be like more of like a modeling picture in my writing. So I am all over the place, but that works for me because I wanted to be authentic. Like you know how sometimes you go on people's social media, maybe it's someone you admire and like you don't know anything about their personal life, it's just training. That's fine. If someone wants to do that, I have respect for that, of course, but I wanted it to be me because again, my main goal was to show people that like anyone, like if I could do this, like you can do it. And I still have my really bad days. I have my bad training days. I have my bad body dysmorphia days. Like I struggle just like everyone else. And I wanted to be really authentic and not be fake on social media. And that's actually become harder as I've gotten older because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to have to tell people that like training is hard right now because my knee hurts.
Hmm.
I'd rather just sometimes pretend, but I'm like, okay, I have to, I promise I'd be honest again because when I coach, I think people usually come to me and want me to be their coach because they appreciate my honesty and brands appreciate my honesty. Like when I joined Granite, John Meadows brought me on because he saw it was like a long jump video I do and he was like, usually I cater to bodybuilders, but I think it's really cool that you do X, Y, and Z. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I like that approach too. I think it's becoming rarer and rarer to see authentic real life content and not everybody jumping on the exact same trend for a week and then it switches.
exactly. And I get kind of like sometimes I'll get caught up in it when I'm looking at trends or like trending songs and I'm like, I want to do that. And sometimes I'll try it. And usually it doesn't work for me. Usually like I
Hmm.
won't get any views if I do something trending because that's not my audience. I'm lucky that I don't have the biggest audience in the world, but I've had a very loyal audience and it's cool because I've hung out with other like influencers that have like a million followers and they're like, we'll go somewhere and people actually know me. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. You actually have like real fans. And I'm like, yes, I'm lucky I have like in the strength community, I do have real fans.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I'm curious, is it something you have to force yourself and really like schedule it in and it's kind of a grind to keep up with the volume of content that you need and filming yourself? Or is that just something natural to you where throughout the day you're just naturally picking up the phone, doing what you got to do and getting to it?
That's such a good question. So it used to be a lot. I feel like it comes in waves, right? So when I'm in like bodybuilding prep and I'm lean and I'm feeling good about myself, content is so easy. Like I want to show my body. I have to really like right now when I'm in the off season, and I don't feel super confident about my body. It's more of I have to force it,
Mm,
not force it. Like there are certain days, like even today, for example, I wanted to like get ready for this live, but we had something come up with the house, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna throw some eyeliner on, put a braid, and just get on. But usually, what I do, and I can actually show you guys for content, is I write everything down. So I have like some. I have two places. I have a Google Doc that I'll put like all content I have in Dropbox that's like ready to be used. So if I filmed like a full day of eating or squat day, or if I did a photo shoot, just so I have like a Rolodex of content. But then sometimes I'll be sitting here. So for example, like for right now, I have on here like Granite, creatine, mental health. I wanted to make a post soon taking my creatine and talking about the benefits for mental health. Now that creatine is more of like a hot topic.
mm,
I've been seeing podcasts and stuff with people talking about like you should take creatine no matter what. Like for women, it's 10 grams a day, for men, it's 5. And then under that, I have on April 12th, there's a pink of full moon. And I did like a pink photo shoot that I wanted to talk about. And then just some random other ones. Like I put one dressed up first, a day at the gym, just like different little ideas. So when they come to me, I write them down.
hmm.
And those ideas will come to me so randomly. Like I could be reading an email from a client and she is expressing something, and I'm like, oh, that gives me such a good idea. Or I could be just out walking. Very rarely do I actually consume social media too much. Like I notice when I consume too much, then I start trying to curate my content in a way that's not authentic to me, and it makes me feel like I feel like a little more sad when I spend too much time on social media,
Mm,
if that makes sense. So
yeah.
I try not to consume it. I do from a market research standpoint, like I'm like, okay, let's see what other people are doing. But again, I try not to do it too often, maybe like
Hmm.
once a week.
Do you feel like when those ideas and inspiration hit, like, does that come often enough to keep up with the posting schedule that you aim for? Or is there times where you have to go and actually like, let me find inspiration inspiration by doing a Pinterest board or checking, things on social media that might inspire me or whatever. Like, or does it just come to you enough where like throughout your day you're going about it and you're getting ideas, or maybe your clients are asking you questions that are relevant or whatever? Like, what does that look like? Is it more natural now just coming to you, or you have to set aside intentional time for it?
It's definitely more natural now, but it comes in waves. Like some weeks I'll be feeling really, really creative and on top of the world. So I'll try to like bang out a lot of content.
Mm,
And then some days, if clients are like competing and they're stressed out or I'm stressed out or just regular life, I feel like content won't come as naturally, but I still set aside time to try and like, so I find my brain kind of works the best for creativity either first thing in the morning or late at night. Never midday when I have so much going on. I feel like that kind of clouds my thought process. So I will purposely, like, if ideas just aren't coming to me, then I'll put it on my schedule. I'm like, okay, tomorrow I need to take 15 minutes, just clear my head. Sometimes, like, this might sound kind of funny, but sometimes I'll actually, because there's so much noise on social media, I'll put on my headphones and I'll listen to binaural beats so that I'm not hearing anything, just kind of like meditating almost. And I'll look through my Dropbox on my computer while I'm doing that, and I'll just try and think of something. So sometimes it might be like a transformation, or sometimes I might look at a photo shoot, and then I'll start writing, and I'll give myself. I have this in my office. I have a 15-minute timer, so I'll flip that, and I will just use an old-fashioned journal and write and see what comes to mind. So I know that's pretty unique, and but like I said, my content will come out real. Yeah. So,
interesting.
so
Yeah, no. I'm curious
yeah.
about your process, and I think that answers it. That's awesome. I I gotta say, you are one of the most dialed in, just like go, go, go people I have ever met, right? And so some advice for somebody who may not be as dialed in and like um maybe needs some help with processes and systems and like, right? Because what you do, I mean, like you're busy all the time. And so time management, I'm sure, is super important. And you're obviously very organized and disciplined with that. Like you write down the ideas as they come to you, you've got your board next to you. So I'm gathering you've got some principles and some systems that you live by. Like, what does that look like for somebody that doesn't have that set up yet and is just disorganized and like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, I need to get it together?
Yeah, I would say so, the first thing I would do is everyone has an iPhone or an Android or something. We all have a notes app on our phone. So try and set aside time in the beginning if it doesn't come natural to you to just lay out like little easy goals. Like if you maybe start small. Like I do this with clients too. It's like maybe you have a goal just to walk every day. If you're trying to get better at content, maybe just make a goal to post 3 times a week, no matter what it is, because it's just like anything. It takes practice, but it becomes easier. And I always use the example of talking to the camera. So when people are first starting out making content, they are like, oh, I hate looking at myself. And I always tell them, yes, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, because no one except you is looking at your video, picking yourself apart. Like I highly doubt, like, cause I'll pick myself apart too sometimes. I'm like, oh, my teeth look bad, my hair's a mess, my eyes are puffy. No one else is doing that except you. So I usually say just practice. But yeah, practice notes on your phone and just find what works for you, and eliminate anything that's not adding. So a lot of people will be like watching TV for hours a day, or just doom scrolling. It's like, is that really adding to your life or taking
Mm,
away? So just look at your habit.
yeah, it makes
And
sense.
another thing I'm really passionate about is putting your phone on do not disturb. So I have lived by this for several years. If my phone wasn't on do not disturb, with my ADHD brain, I would not be able to get anything done, because there's constant distractions, right? Like you'll have people texting you, you have app notifications, everything. It's so overwhelming. So even when you text me, like you probably saw, like you
Yeah.
had to alert me. So I do that, and I'll still check it, but I utilize my phone because I'm always on it so much for work. I'll utilize text messages and WhatsApp and things like that for like almost like email. So it's I'm not always on it because if yeah, people with the world we live in, you can let your phone rule your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm victim to the notifications every once in a while, definitely. Um, I think my last question is like, how do you maintain your drive and your motivation to continue doing as much as you're doing and, as tiring a sport as it can be, right? Like, how do you maintain your motivation and your drive? And if it's, yeah, that's kind of what I'm curious about. Like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that's very relevant to me right now because I have been struggling with motivation, and I know that's just not everyone is going to feel motivated all the time, right? So the past few days, like I'm getting really nervous about my upcoming surgery. I had like an allergic reaction to something, and I just felt like I was going through it. And as easy as it is to like not want to go to the gym and not do anything, sometimes it's like I feel like I have a responsibility to still show up for myself and my clients. And I know like I always keep the big picture in mind. So I'm a very visual person. So when I was feeling like that the other day, I call it the um oh, I had a specific name for it, but like thinking about past accomplishments. So when you're feeling really down, it's like think about what you have accomplished, even if it seems small, even if it was like, for me, like I might look back at like winning something, but sometimes I'll just look back at like, oh my God, I was going through X, Y, and Z, and I still went to the gym that day, or I still like food prepped and cleaned my house. Like little wins help keep
Hmm.
you motivated when the world seems against you. And that's something I actually get really upset about is sometimes like I'll be at the gym or at the store and people like tell you their excuses. Like, I don't have time. I have kids. I have this. And I kind of am just like laughing because it's like, you have no idea what someone else is going through. And oftentimes, like people that you look up to have more going on and more turmoil in their life than you can even imagine. So I just try to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good attitude. Um, that's all I had for today, unless you wanted to cover anything else, but I appreciate everybody joining and you sharing your story with us.
Yes, thank
Um,
you, man.
yeah,
That was
of
fun.
course. Obviously, anyone that's here on the Granite page, follow Brittany, follow along with her. You offer coaching. Just tell people kind of where they can find you and yeah.
Yeah, so in my Instagram is my main social media platform, just B_dimes, which you can see right here. And then from there, I have a website and everything. So I'm not the best, like I said, notifications. I'm not the best with DMs. I only check those once in a while, but on my website, I'm always on my email. So
Cool. Perfect. Well, I appreciate all your time today. And yeah, everybody stay tuned for next week's live stream. And this, along with all past live streams, are going to be on the Granite's YouTube channel. So that'll be linked in the profile as well. But yeah, thank you very much.
thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.